Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Woking Borough Council Planning Committee, the 2nd of March. If I could just go through a few procedural matters before we get underway. Firstly, those people who've registered to speak, when I call you to speak, if you could just use the microphone on the desk there in front, on the great button, and a little red light here comes on for the live. Please ensure your mobile phones are switched off or just on silent. And as you see, tonight's proceedings, as with all planning committee meetings, are filmed and will be available on all popular channels in due course. If I could just introduce the relevant officers. The planning committee, firstly, is made up of 9 elected members, borough councillors, and we're supported by professional council officers who are here to guide us, should we require guidance. On my far right is Mary Severin, who's the borough solicitor, who's here obviously to advise us on any matters of legal issues. Next to her is Colm O'Canahan, who's the Democratic Services Officer and Clerk to the committee. Next to him is Councillor Tim Holton, who's the Vice Chair of the committee. I'm Simon Weeks, I chair the committee. And on my left is Claire Lawrence, who's Head of Development Management. And next to her is Chris Easton, who's the Service Manager of Highway Development. And the other people sitting on the panel are the rest of the committee members who will be deliberating on tonight's applications and hopefully coming to a decision. Planning committee is quasi-judicial, and we'd ask you to follow the set procedures and conduct that I've outlined. Planning officer will present each item in turn, and we will then listen to any speakers, and we will then debate those, and as I say, try and come to a decision. The time limit for speaking is 3 minutes, which I will control strictly, so please get your key points across in the 3 minutes. So there's disappointment for both the speakers and us if you don't get your key points before your time's up. Members are interested, as always, in the quality of what you have to say rather than the quantity. And then finally, just a reminder that as the planning committee, and we represent the local planning authority here tonight, and our role is to make decisions on planning matters using local and national planning laws. It is not our role to discuss or debate whether planning applications are a good idea, value for money, could be improved, are from good or bad people, whatever it may be. We're looking at it purely from a planning perspective. So I think without further ado, we'll go straight on to the meeting itself. I can see there are no apologies for absence. We have all 9 members of the planning committee here present. And minutes of the last meeting have been provided. Does anybody wish to make any changes or amendments to those minutes, or can I sign them as a true record? I see no one indicating, so I shall sign those. Okay. Declarations of interest. Anybody wish to declare an interest? I shall be declaring an interest on the second item on the agenda, which is Manor Farm. This farm is quite prominent in Fitcherton. I've worked actively on behalf of residents with the owner of the farm over the last 4 years to try and minimise the impact of his activities on the village, and that's obviously brought me into close contact with him, so I shall take no part in that decision and leave the room, and the Vice Chairman will chair that item. Okay, and there are no items to be deferred or withdrawn, in which case we'll move straight on to the first application, which is Rustlings and the Spring in Shinfield Road. And this is a site that members of the planning committee visited last Friday morning and viewed the site from obviously the road within the site. And we also walked to the rear of the site to see it from the newer developments that have taken place in recent years to the rear. So without further ado, we'll go straight across to Graham Vaughan, the case officer. Graham.
Application 153433 is for the erection of 10 dwellings following the demolition of the existing 2 dwellings on the site. The site is located in the major development location of Shinfield and is accessed from Shinfield Road. The area is characterised predominantly through residential properties, but the European Centre for Leading Weather Forecasting and Crossfield School are nearby. The proposal is for 10 3-bed units, which would all be 2-storey and semi-detached. The initial 4 will be located in approximately the same location as the existing dwellings, and a further 6 properties will be located behind these but on the same orientation. A road will run through the site with a turning area at the end and parking located to the front of dwellings. Private amenity space is provided to the rear of the dwellings, and in addition, a pumping station will be located in the centre of the site. A significant amount of development has occurred in the surrounding area, which has changed the original character that was established by properties on Shinfield Road. In particular, backland development has been established by properties on Wilsford Close. Policy TB06 of the NDD local plan relates to backland development and advises that such proposals should be in keeping with the character of the area in order to be acceptable. With regards to the properties fronting Shinfield Road, these would be similar to the existing line of development and therefore in keeping with the character of the area. The properties behind these would be situated along the same building line as the properties on Wilsford Close and therefore are also in keeping with the character of the area. Whilst they would be orientated differently to the properties on Wilsford Close, they would still reflect the existing grain of development. As a result, the proposal is considered to be in accordance with policy TB06. To demonstrate the development in the area, I've highlighted different sections of dwellings. The site is outlined in red, and the rest of Shinfield Road was established some time ago. In the 1980s, Rye Hill Way in Lower Earnley was granted approval. In 1995, the first phase of Wilsford Close was consented, and the second phase in 1998. In 2004, the former Met Office site was redeveloped for 310 dwellings and is west of Shinfield Road, but outside of this picture. In 2005, the properties here were allowed to be redeveloped, with the front two replacing existing dwellings and an additional two behind these, but accessed off Wilsford Close. Shortly after, the Ducky Speed development was approved. And shortly after that, 3 additional properties were allowed at appeal on Wilsford Close. In terms of residential amenity, the proposal meets the recommendations of the Borough Design Guide. There is mutual overlooking in the area due to development over time. Amended plans show plots 7 and 8 set back to alleviate any overbearing impact on 38 Wilsford Close. It should be noted that there would be some overlooking into the rear garden of 20 Wilsford Close as a result of the land levels. However, the separation distance does meet the Borough Design Guide recommendation, being 19 metres. As members will recall, this is at the top of the site, and the dwelling with the dormer window in the centre of the picture is 22 Wilsford Close. This is 38 Wilsford Close to the side of the site. And then this is 20 Wilsford Close to the rear of the site. Subject to conditions, no harmful impact is identified with regards to highways, tree and landscape impact, environmental health concerns, internal space standards, biodiversity or sustainability. Due to the land levels, the drainage for the site would be through a pumping station. Surface water runoff would collect in an underground storage tank, which would then be taken through the pumping station up to an existing drainage connection on Shinfield Road. The pumping station would be adopted by Thames Water and has been considered by the Council's drainage officer and found to be acceptable. In the members' update, there's a couple of alterations to the conditions. Firstly, to remove condition 17 relating to highway grading and the insertion of a new condition regarding the site levels. This is because further details regarding the topography of the land are required in order for an appropriate grading of the road to be agreed. Nonetheless, this will be as part of the highways agreement outside of the planning application, but will still be in accordance with highway standards. Also, in the summary information box on page 17 of the agenda, the proposed parking space should read 23, not 20. Below, you'll see a box demonstrating the density in dwellings per hectare of the site and the surrounding areas. As you can see, it's appropriate median density and is not considered to be inappropriate in the character of the area. The European Centre for Medium-Range Weather Forecasting employs approximately 300 people on the site on Shinfield Road. A couple of changes were suggested by the members, one including a keep clear blocks outside the development. However, there is no highway requirement for this, and therefore it would be unreasonable to ask in planning terms to insist on its inclusion. Also, an additional parking space has been suggested adjacent to the pumping station. Whilst the size would be appropriate, it's considered the pumping station area would limit visibility, particularly when reversing, to the extent that it would not be suitable for an additional parking space. Some further points of clarification. As per policy CP5 strategy, the requirement for affordable housing is 20% on site, and this is going to be provided off-site, and therefore the amount is equivalent to £229,953. Internal space standards for new dwellings are set nationally, and for a 3-bedroom property with 6 bed spaces, the minimum requirement is 102 square metres. All the plots would significantly exceed this. Cycle parking will be provided and has been highlighted in some of the submitted documents, but not on a plan, but there is a condition to cover this. The pumping station is set to be adopted by Thames Water, and they will not accept anything above 5 litres per second, and therefore the discharge rate of 4.9 per site is considered acceptable. Additionally, clarification has been sought regarding the impact on school places for the development. However, since adopting the community infrastructure levy, the growth of schools is financed in part by SIL receipts, and as such it's not necessary for a planning application to justify it has an acceptable impact on local schools, as it would contribute to the borough's SIL pot in any case. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Graham. We have 2 people registered to speak. Do we have Pam Gregory here? Appears that she's not arrived. So Ellen Kendrick, agent of the applicant. So if you just press the grey button.
Great.
We'll be able to hear you clearly. Thank you.
Perfect, thanks. Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening. My name is Ellen Kendrick and I'm a senior planner for Willow and we are the agents of this application. The scale, layout and design of this proposal have evolved following regular discussions with the Council's officers, both during pre-application discussions and during consideration of the application itself. Following the submission of the plans that are before you today, no statutory consultees have any objections to the proposal as confirmed in the committee reports. I thought it might be helpful though to just briefly address some of the comments and additional queries made by local residents and the Parish Council, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions from members on these points. Firstly, the Parish Council have expressed a preference for the development to be accessed by Wilsford Coast, and the applicant did explore this possibility at an early stage, but this would require third-party land, which is outside our client's control, as the public highway doesn't extend right up to the site boundary. Access is therefore proposed from Shinfield Road, and the Council, as the Local Highways Authority, have confirmed this is safe and acceptable.
Would you have the microphone a little closer to you?
Sorry, yeah. Is that better?
Thank you.
Yeah. Concerns have also been raised regarding car parking. Again, as set out in the report, the proposal includes 2 allocated spaces per dwelling, none of which are in garages, plus 3 designated visitor spaces. This is fully in accordance with the Council standards, whilst retaining as much space as possible for new tree planting and soft landscaping. Surface water drainage has also been mentioned. As Graham mentioned, the development includes an attenuation tank to store excess surface water runoff before it's discharged into the public sewer. The tank is large enough to accommodate a 1 in 100 year storm, plus 30% allowance for climate change, and will be located under the turning head and car parking area at the rear of the site. Due to the topography of the site, as members will have seen, it's not practical to drain the site by gravity, and so a pumping station is proposed in order to pump the water from the tank back up to the sewer along Shinfield Road. It will also control the rate at which the foul and surface water from the site enters the sewer. The pumping station has been designed in accordance with relevant standards to be at least 10 metres from neighbouring properties. It will also be underground, and so any noise generated will be minimal, and the standards restrict any noise to 80 decibels, which is comparable to a dishwasher. It will also only pump during peak hours of the day, which are normally in the morning and the evening, when meals are prepared and showers or baths are used. It won't have a detrimental impact on residential amenity, either in the form of odour, noise or general nuisance. It will also not affect the existing drainage of any neighbouring properties. It's therefore submitted that the proposal represents a sustainable form of development which complies with all the relevant local and national policy requirements. The site is immediately available for development and so would also make a meaningful contribution towards the Council's housing land supply. We therefore fully support your officer's recommendation and we hope that the committee will also endorse it. Thank you.
Excellent timing. Thank you. Right, members. We have no, as I say, the other registered speaker has not turned up, so we'll discuss this item now. Before we come on to it, could I just get clarification on one thing that something I picked up from Shinfield Parish Council's comments that they appreciate the reduction in the scale of the development. Were there I don't see an application related to it. Were the initial discussions for a larger scale development or already?
Yeah, let's discuss that at the pre-application stage.
Thank you. Okay, I think the other thing is just to get clarification on is that you detailed the densities on a number of both the existing street and the streets behind. You also mentioned that some of those have been allowed on appeal, is that right?
So the top 3 dwellings in the kind of blue section, right at the top of the picture, those are the 3 that were allowed on appeal.
Right. Thank you. I think the other things we saw on site that there was the, if you like, the creation of a new type of building line that appeared to the rear from some of the existing properties. We've also heard that the density is in accordance and highways have confirmed that they're satisfied with the traffic arrangements, although obviously there will be an intensification of traffic because of the entrance onto Shinfield Road. And just the other point I wanted to just remind members of, there are no garages on site, so you could, sometimes we know that garages, which they're included for parking, often aren't actually available for parking. So in these cases there will be demarked public spaces, so they should remain available for parking at all times, hopefully. So we don't have a local member, so we'll go firstly to Bob. You need to go first.
Yeah, thank you, Simon. I've got several questions, really. First question, I'll run through them, Graham, and then you can pick the ones you can answer. The ridge heights of the buildings, because that's going to be pertinent to how it's viewed from the house, not 38 Wolfsford, I think, and from the gardens there. The water runoff, again, we've heard this 1 in 100 year figure, which is being revised. Are we satisfied that that meets the latest information we have? Because the weather we had, especially today, I would say that's getting pretty dodgy. Much has been made of the character of the area and the appeal decision. Were the houses that were allowed on appeal and the planning applications before the change to PPS 3, where backland development was frowned upon? Is that one? Where do they park during construction? Because I couldn't see anywhere easy around there to park. And you mentioned that the money goes into the sill pot for schools, but where are we going to build them? So we're running out, supposed to build schools, and running out of supposed to extend schools. So it's all very well the money going into the sill pot, but what are we going to do with it? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll start. So the height of the ridge, I've just measured one, is 8.9 metres. People say most of them would be about 9 metres.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, do you want to take James? Yeah.
On the drainage, I think there's been quite a few details given out already, but in terms of the standards, yes, 1 in 100 plus 30% is the current, and the tank that's put on the ground is at 95% capacity when that is reached. So there is enough. It's a big tank here.
Question about PPS 3?
Yeah. The appeal decision for those 3 dwellings, just let me double check. Was in 2005, so before the PPS 3 was changed. I would say, although yes, it was an appeal decision, and I'm kind of highlighting that, it's not the development doesn't swing on that point. I'd say that the character of the area as a whole supports this type of development.
Yeah, sorry, if I can come back on that. The reason I'm saying that is the changes to PPS 3 maintain that the rest of the land was green, should be treated as greenfield land, and the actual plot the house sat on was brownfield, previously developed land. So you have to be careful using the term previously developed land.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does that answer your answers to all the points you raised there?
parking during construction.
Yeah, parking during construction is
As a school
10.1. There's a parking of vehicles of site operatives and visitors on page 11. It's got to be agreed in advance. It's part of the construction method statement.
Interestingly, where?
It'll have to be on site. Certainly can't be on the Shinfield Road.
That's my question.
I mean, that's a valid point. There are no parking restrictions at that point in the road. And obviously when we arrived at 8 o'clock on a Friday morning, which is probably one of the lightest days of traffic, we were all particularly parked on roads away from Shinfield Road and walked to the site. Construction vehicles parked on that road would cause significant issues. And what control have we got with the construction method statement details? It's not compulsory, is it? That's my concern.
Well, in terms of construction management, in terms of the construction environment management plan, it gives us the ability for them to submit information. So on other development sites, like we've had in the borough, we've gone to site and said your trucks are parked on the carriageway. The owners of those trucks, the contractors, have said, I legally can park here. We've said technically you can, but because you're in agreement, you're working for this contractor who's got a condition discharge with his construction environment management plan. It's his requirement to obviously provide you with space, and therefore the site manager came out and has moved them off. So it's a matter of enforcement. You will probably get some parking on there, but it's for the council and for the local residents to inform us it's happening, and we'll make sure that our compliance officers are making sure they comply with their condition.
Well, I guess the question for me is it better to do it through that method as opposed to having a specific condition?
Yes, Chairman, in my view, it's better to do it this way. If we just ask for a parking area to be provided, there's no requirement at that stage to insist that they park on that. We can just ask that the parking is provided. Whereas if it's a construction management plan condition, they need to provide details to us. We consider it, they've given us that information, and then if they're saying we will make sure our contractors park on the site, then they've actually put that forward and we can then enforce that. So that's the best way.
Okay. Rochelle? Sorry?
Sill.
Well, SIL covers all the infrastructure requirements, including education. And as I said at the beginning of the meeting, it's not the planning committee's role to determine whether there's enough places in schools. That's up to our Children's Services Department, the council, who get notified of all developments and have a pot of SIL money which they can use to provide those. But it's not something that's within the planning committee's remit. Rochelle?
Back to the pumping station again for a second. You said Thames Water was planning on adopting it. Can we manage to get it put on the Register of Assets? Because inexperience in my particular ward, Thames Water owns a pumping station, and the maintenance of that pumping station, shall we say, is rather inadequate. The amount of works for the amount of water they claim they were going to be taking off versus what they're doing, the pipe is too small to do this. So if we need more pumping available, this way at least we can also inspect it to make sure it's actually working correctly.
I can't say there is a problem for it to become the asset, but obviously it's something that is the responsibility of Thames, so obviously we don't want to take any responsibility or financial burden for that.
But if we put it on the Register of Assets, we can at least inspect it and force Thames to do it according to the flooding training we just had recently.
I think probably the best thing, Rochelle, is probably if we pick that up and feed it back. I'm not convinced that I can give you a definite answer on that at the moment, but we will take it back to our drainage team and ask whether or not that's something they can do. I think the difference is with it being Thames Water maintained, we just need to check the position. I don't want to say yes, we'll do it and then not be able to.
It's just that on the suds and things like this, we were told that we'd be able to put them on the Register of Assets for the suds, and they're going to be maintained by a private company. And Thames Water is a private company; it's not a public company. So therefore, again, trying to make sure somebody actually does this. And from my own personal experience, Thames Water is not always as responsive as they should be.
Yeah, we'll pick it up. I think there's just the difference between mechanical suds or mechanical drainage and obviously the suds ponds, which are completely different in terms of how they're maintained. But yeah, we'll pick it up and come on.
Chris?
Thanks, Simon. Thanks. I've had responses prior to the meeting on the flood, and that's been covered. I think just a couple of things. First of all, the traffic turning out of that little close. That is one of the most congested roads going into Reading in the morning. And I just wonder, are we really happy that people are going to be able to turn out of there? That's one thing. Shall I take the other thing as well? And that is, well, it's internal traffic. It's the gradient of that road. What's the internal, the cul-de-sac? It's only about ice, how people get out in bad weather, how that can be dealt with.
Okay, well, we've got a new condition, or alteration to condition 17, which is detailed in the members update about the topography of the site and the fact that we need to be demonstrating that a maximum of 1 in 10 gradient can be achieved there.
Yeah, probably, 1 in 10 would be our absolute maximum, 1 in 12's probably our maximum. But in terms of having a look at a plan that's been submitted, we haven't obviously got a full detailed levels plan, which is why we requested it. But one we've obviously had from the architect, which does show a cross section of the fall of the site. The road is currently 1 in 15, which is pretty good. It's got a good gradient on it. But in terms of getting the details, when we get the highways details through, that will be the point that we'll have that all checked at the section 38 stage.
So just to be clear, that would be, although it looks safe, that would be a condition, and as such, if it couldn't be met, then that would...
in essence, that's a ground being condition.
Yeah. It has to be met to meet highways adoption standards.
Yeah. Okay.
Just on the traffic issue, I mean, I think, Chris, it would be fair to say that anybody who, if these houses get planning permission and are built, anyone who goes to view them is going to be aware that Shinfield Road is not a quiet country lane, it's a major route. And I would think people, if there's difficulty emerging, I mean, it depends whether you're wishing to go coming out of the site and turn left, which should be fairly easy. Turning right becomes more of a challenge because of the density of traffic. But as we know, there's a roundabout very close by, and as you see, a lot of other busy roads in Workingham, often people turn out and go round the roundabout in order to get on the side of the road to head in the other direction. So I think we have to allow that residents who would buy these properties will be aware that this is a road that they're not, they have to pause for a while before they can get out. But I don't think that's something that we can address in planning terms.
Okay. No. Thank you.
Tim?
Yeah, Bob, I just wanted to actually firstly respond to you about the contractors parking in the road. An application on London Bridge Road, the bakery one, about 4 weeks ago there were 9 cars parked in the road. I spoke with the planning officer that day, and the next morning and for the last 4 weeks there has not been a car parked in the road. They've all been parked on site, so it did work. The officers did their job there. So that
I agree with you there, but I can't actually see where they can park there. That's a query on that.
Right.
In Long Bridge Road, there's plenty of space around different places.
And for this application, I just wanted to read 2 sentences from the design guide. And I appreciate it's the design guide, but I still want to read it out. Exceptionally, it may be possible to permit a further dwelling within the large rear garden of an existing dwelling, whilst providing adequate privacy and amenity to both. However, it is unlikely that a 2-storey development could be achieved satisfactorily on a site of less than 0.4 of a hectare. This one is 0.35 of a hectare, and it's 8 additional buildings.
Okay, all right. Right. Are there any other members wishing to speak? Okay. Does any member wish to put we have a recommendation for approval in front of us. We've heard the Vice Chairman's comment and Bob's comment. Does anybody wish to put an alternative proposal forward for us to consider?
Thank you, Chairman. Now, I propose we refuse this application on the grounds that it's not in keeping with TB06, its backland development, which is something I think we should clamp down on, and the 9-metre heights of the building are going to be considerably overbearing to 38 Wilsford, is it, or houses there? So I think on the grounds of it doesn't comply with policy TPO6. It is an on-balance decision, and I would therefore propose we refuse this application.
Is there a member who wishes to second that?
I can second that without problem.
So we have a valid proposal. We need to put that to the vote. And, sorry, Chris, you want a clarification?
Not quite. I wasn't on the site visit. And as the proposal is referring to overbearing, I think I wasn't in a very good position to judge that aspect of it, so I'll abstain.
Okay, so we have a valid alternative proposal put forward. Ted, can you just confirm the reasons that have been proposed?
Yes, Chairman. There were two reasons there. The first one being that the proposal, by reason of its backland form, would result in development which is not in keeping with the character of the area, in accordance with obviously there's policies in the local strategy, the MDD, and the Borough Design Guide that we can refer to substantiate that. The second reason for refusal was one of the overbearing on adjacent properties, and I can't remember. I will just check which property it is in particular, but I think it's the one at the rear that the particular concerned about.
Okay, so we have a valid proposal. Could members please indicate whether they wish to support that proposal to refuse this application? Could you please show? That's 3 votes. Those against? So I'm afraid that fails, Bob. Therefore, we go to the substantive item, which is the application as detailed in the report, subject to the amendments that are detailed on the members' update, particularly those relating to condition 17. And Claire, you're going to get clarification with regard to the pumping station to see whether that's something that could be on the asset register. I don't think there were any other points that were outstanding on that. So, could members wishing to support the application please indicate? That's 6 votes, I think. Yes, that's supported by 6 votes. So the application is approved.
Can we just see if there's any hands?
Yes, sorry, those against. I'm not sure.
Thank you.
My apologies. Okay, so we now move on to the second application, which is Manor Farm, Shinfield Road. For the reasons I've already mentioned, I'm going to step out of the room and not take part in this discussion and hand over to the Vice Chair.
Right. Members, if we're ready to take the next item. I'll hand over to the officer who's responsible for this application.
So application 153434 is for the erection of 3 coal stores at Manor Farm, Finchampstead. The site is located in designated countryside and is bordered by 4 roads which contain residential properties. The farm occupies the majority of the area within the roads. The new coal stores will be located slightly south of the centre of the site. The stores will be attached to the 2 existing buildings on the site, and I've outlined these in red. The existing coal store to the right will be augmented by 2 coal stores either side of similar proportions. The height of the proposed coal stores would be 8.4 metres to the ridge and 6.9 metres to the eaves. The proposed ridge is 0.5 metres higher than the existing ridge. The existing irrigation shed to the left would be extended with 1 coal store, also of similar proportions. The height of the proposed coal store here would be 5.9 metres to the ridge and 4.6 metres to the eaves. This would be the same height as the existing ridge and eaves. Members have seen the site previously, but just to show you the area where the buildings are located. The existing polytunnels on the site can be seen on the left, looking towards Lower Sandhurst Road. Slightly further along, you can see the edge of the existing coal store and where one of the new ones would be located. These are the 2 existing buildings, the coal store on the left and the irrigation shed on the right. On the left, you can see the bank of the irrigation ponds, and on the right, looking back from the top of the bank towards the existing coal store. Here you can see the existing line of established trees on the left, as well as the irrigation ponds on the right. The site is within designated countryside and therefore subject to policy CP11 of the core strategy. This limits development subject to exception criteria. One of these is that proposals contribute to diverse and sustainable rural enterprises within the borough. EU Plants, the applicant and operator of the site, is in the propagation business where the initial growth of fruit plants occurs and then are harvested, frozen and distributed to other businesses who complete the growth process. The business is expanding and the cold stores are vital in meeting the demands placed on the business. As a result, there is a recognised need for the cold stores and the business helps contribute to the local economy. In this respect, the proposal accords with policy CP11. It should also be noted the NPPF encourages economic growth in rural areas. Buildings would create additional built form in designated countryside and are large in scale. However, they would concentrate development to one area of the farm rather than spreading it over a large area. It is in fact the least visible part of the site. There is a line of trees adjacent to the buildings which help to obscure views, but additional planting can be secured through a landscaping scheme. Subject to conditions, there will be no harmful impact in terms of highways, tree and landscape impact or environmental health concerns. The surface water runoff from the buildings will partially go into existing drainage, but some will be taken to the irrigation ponds. Council's drainage officer does not raise any objection to this. In the members' update, starting on page 2, there is additional condition regarding external lighting and for a scheme to be submitted for our approval. I'm going on to page 3, clarification of the heights, which I've already said about. The activities on the farm do create vehicle movements, and a query has been raised if the hours of deliveries and collections could be restricted. However, the farm has been in place for a significant amount of time, and therefore it would be unreasonable from a planning perspective to impose restrictions on this, particularly when they're not directly related to the proposal itself. In paragraph 11 on page 51 agenda, reference is made to an on-balance argument. This relates to the impact of the character of the area, where it's acknowledged that buildings are large and create additional built form in the countryside. However, they are for an agricultural use in a rural area. As a result, in character terms, the argument is considered to be more finely balanced, but still an acceptable impact. Looking at the application as a whole, the cold stores are considered to have a limited impact on elements such as biodiversity or residential amenity, and have a significant positive impact in terms of local economy. Taking all of this into account, the application is considered to be clearly acceptable in planning terms. Finally, some comments were received from Finchampstead Parish Council today, stating industrial traffic should access the site from the entrance off Longwater Road. Attention needs to be given to appropriate screening from the local roads, and generators should be soundproofed. In response to this, the access which HGVs use is not a matter that can be controlled by the planning application. As already stated, the farm has been in place for some time. Appropriate screening is in place, and a condition requiring additional screening is also included in the agenda. Finally, the environmental health officer who has been on site did not raise any concerns regarding impact of noise, and therefore would be unreasonable in planning terms to require soundproofing.
Is Robin Bradbeer in the audience? No. Right, we have no external speakers then, obviously we haven't got the members left, so I'll open it up to committee. Bob.
Yeah, thank you. Graham, on page 3 or 4, you mentioned the paragraph, this is in paragraph 11 on page 51 of the agenda, and being an on-balance argument. I couldn't see anywhere a condition that the buildings are painted the same colour as the others, the green colour, because that tends to blend in fairly well with the countryside. Would it further minimise the impact?
So condition 3, which is on page 46, says except where stated otherwise approved drawings, the materials used in construction of external surfaces, I might have to reword that in fairness, should be of similar appearance. So we would look to do that, but I might reword the condition slightly.
If you could, I'd be eternally grateful.
That's fine.
Any other members wishing to ask a question? No? Okay, and if I don't propose then to go on to make this last any longer then, there's the additional condition in the members' update, and we're having the condition 3 rewritten. So subject to those two, can we have a vote whether we're accepting the recommendations? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Next application is application for the University of Reading, which is a farm at Church Lane, Hartlefield. Members have not visited the site. I actually went and had an unofficial look at it on our way home from the Shinfield site, and I can, speaking from personal experience, it appears to be a very long way from anywhere in terms of overlooking. So let's see what the case officer said. So the case officer in this case is Daniel Ray.
Application number 152726. This application proposes the erection of a cowshed and slurry tank at Hall Farm, north of Hartlefield. The Centre for Dairy Research is a nationally important centre which has been within the borough since the early 20th century. Today, the centre is a research and educational facility that's part of the University of Reading. To orientate yourselves, I've circled the application site in red, which is to the north of Hartlefield. However, the site is accessed off the area of Church Lane, that is to the northwest of the village, and is accessed through secure gates. The proposed cowshed is to the northeast of the application site, whilst the slurry tank is to the northwest corner of the site. From here, we're looking north from the east side of the existing large cowshed, looking towards the end where the new cowshed is proposed, which would be here. We're now in the northeastern corner, looking west towards where the slurry tanks are in the distance. However, there is a mound which helps enclose the site and reduces views in from the north. Here is the corner of the furthest westernmost slurry tank, and the new one is proposed just past this. The total proposed floor space measures some 1,779 square metres, with 1,103 square metres being the cowshed itself. Whilst the proposal constitutes major development due to the scale of the development, the proposal is quite minor in the context of the site as a whole, where much larger structures and buildings are already present. The proposed cowshed would be dwarfed by the existing building it is proposed next to. The principle of development is considered acceptable. The existing activities contribute positively to the rural economy, whilst the proposed development itself is contained within the existing site, and therefore not encroaching further into the open countryside. Some planting is present which would help to break up the frontage of the cowshed, although the existing mound limits views into the site. As such, views from the north, while looking south of the site, would not be overly different from what is currently experienced. The design of the cowshed and the proposed materials would not be unexpected in a rural setting for an agricultural building. The use of timber cladding and cement sheet cladding for the roof are typical of buildings such as this. Similarly, the external appearance of the slurry tank would be steel and similar to the two existing tanks already on site. The steel is lined internally with glass which stops the steel being corroded. Nearby residential properties are agricultural workers' cottages that are linked to the Centre of Dairy Research. The proposed development would not erode their private residential amenity, which they enjoy these cottages, because any disturbance from agricultural activities would be expected because they're probably working on the site themselves. A condition is proposed to ensure a scheme of archaeological works is agreed prior to work being undertaken, as the site is in an area of no buried archaeology. The application is recommended for approval as the proposal is in accordance with adopted national and local policy, has no negative impact on the character of the countryside, and will not be detrimental to neighbouring residential amenity, whilst the potential for buried archaeology will be protected through the use of an appropriate condition. By way of updates, there's nothing in the sheet, but as you're always aware, I did notice, however, as I was going through, that I missed a plan on the drawings, and so if the planning permission is proposed to be granted, I'd ask that drawing 8012 provision E is added to the any permission granted. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Daniel. Members, this is largely a planning committee because of its scale. It's a major application. You're aware that we have no objections from residents or from parish council. So I think Michelle, you were indicating you wish to speak, and John.
Yes, I just wonder, what is a dry cow shed? Are there wet cow sheds or semi-dry cow sheds? It just seems like a strange term. Is there a special reason for this?
My understanding is it is literally a roofed, open-ended structures to allow cows to be moved in and either, well, for milking purposes, investigations, research, things like that. It's literally a covered shed. I think it's an agricultural term rather than anything specific.
Okay. So it couldn't bring wet cows in there or something?
John.
Yes, Chairman. I just wanted to say I'm on Arborfield Parish Council, and we welcome the university doing something other than building houses.
Right. Paul?
Yeah, one comment I would like, well, question I'd like to ask is that the agricultural workers' cottages are very close to this tank. Are they going to be affected by any smell from the slurry? Because coming from the country, slurry can smell quite horribly. The other thing is I'm very pleased to see there's an archaeological condition there, as there is known archaeology. And I'm sure the University of Reading, having a very fine archaeology department, will be able to sort any problems out as they arise.
Okay, well, I think there's a slurry tank already in existence, Bob. There's a slurry tank already in existence very close to the cottages that I saw that I was there. So, and one would assume that don't speak from a particularly informed point of view, but assume a newer slurry tank would probably be meet higher standards than the slurry tank that was already there.
Just wanted to raise it.
Yeah, absolutely, that's entirely correct. But it's also worth noting the agricultural cottages which were granted permission, I think in the 70s, in my report, is specifically referenced to the National Centre for Dairy Research at the time. So whoever is there is working in the site and
Pretty much all
absolutely.
Okay, you see no other members indicating they wish to speak, so we have a clear recommendation, as Dan has pointed out, there are no updates other than the reference to the additional plan which is already noted. So members, could you please indicate whether you're willing to support this application? And that is unanimously approved. Thank you, members. We now move on to the Willow Tree Works site applications. Just remind members that you remember we had a quite contentious application in Swallowfield where there had been some experience of localised flooding, and quite exceptionally, because we weren't satisfied that all the information was available at the time we made a provisional decision, I agreed that we would bring this back to the committee for the discharge of the relevant drainage conditions, and that is all we are discussing tonight. As I say, that was an exception. I think what we'll do is Graham probably ask you to discuss both of these as one, but obviously when we come on to consider them, we'll take them as two separate votes. So that's the application starting on page 83 and then on page 97. So back to Graham.
So planning permission was issued in April 2015 for the demolition of existing buildings in erection 38 dwellings, parking, landscaping, open space and infrastructure on the Willow Tree Works site, Swallowfield. This permission included a number of conditions which required the approval of further details. Exceptionally, it was agreed that relevant submissions relating to the approval of flooding and drainage matters should be brought to the committee for determination given the issues surrounding flooding in the area. An application to approve conditions 22, 23 and 24 and also 26, however, this is not being considered by the committee, has been submitted under application reference 152659. An application to approve condition 25 under application reference 152725 is also for consideration by the committee. The original submissions have been supplemented by the submission of a significant amount of additional information, which has been subject to additional consultation with neighbours and consultees. The applications were deferred from last month's committee to allow for additional modelling information to support submissions in relation to part of condition 24, which has now been submitted. However, as a consequence of the additional information, Swallowfield Parish Council, Swallowfield Flood Resilience Group and the Council's drainage consultant have all written to confirm they withdraw their objections to the drainage details that have been submitted. As such, no objections to the details remain outstanding. The Parish Council and Flood Resilience Group have also confirmed they do not wish to speak against the applicant. The applicant has therefore also withdrawn their request to speak. In relation to application 152659, I'll just run through what the conditions are actually asking for. Condition 22 requires the developer to notify the council of the construction programme for any SUDS measures within private gardens. SUDS features, which are filter drains with perforated pipes, are proposed in gardens of plots 35 to 38. The applicant has confirmed that works to implement the drainage scheme began in October, with the filter drains due to be completed shortly. Overall construction expected to take 14 months. Condition 23 relates to the details of the drainage system and has 7 separate requirements. This includes details of phasing and measures to mitigate flood risk during construction, how surface water attenuation and infiltration will be provided across the site, how the likely impacts of local groundwater levels, climate change and changes in impermeable area are accounted for, the demonstration that the proposed development will not exacerbate the risk of surface water flooding off-site, details of all the components of the drainage system, details of water quality treatment and details of the maintenance and adoption of the proposed drainage system. Condition 24 requires the details of the implementation, maintenance and management of the sustainable drainage scheme are approved. Specifically, such features are proposed in the gardens of plots 35 to 38. For members' reference, this is on page 106 of the agenda. The council can only designate these SUDS features as flood defence structures once the features have been constructed, and so to make purchasers aware of the drainage, the applicant has agreed to write a covenant into the deeds of these properties to ensure that SUDS features are retained, maintained and operated as intended. The deeds will include operation and maintenance information. In relation to application 15275, condition 25 requires the approval of details relating to the disposal of foul sewage. All the submitted information has been reviewed by the council's drainage consultant, Swallowfield Parish Council and Swallowfield Flood Resilience Group. No objections to the information are outstanding and it's therefore recommended that the conditions be approved in accordance with these submissions.
Thank you, Graham. And we just have one person registered. Simon Dello, are you present? Yeah. Okay, so fine. So no one else wishing to, no one's registered to speak. So straight across to the committee members. We don't have a ward member here. Rochelle, you're indicating.
Again, are these SUDs going to be adopted by WBC or listed in the Register of Assets? They haven't been done yet, I know, but when they are.
Yes, they're all adopted, other than the parts that are obviously running.
But
through
by
the
WBC or by...
They'll be adopted by the council.
Yes, that's what I think. Thank you.
So members, you remember that, as I say, this was very contentious. I'm very much endorsed the work done by the local residents in the flood resilience group and the developers, Bellway, who have actually proved that by working together you actually get something that's acceptable to all parties. So I very much endorse that and encourage others to learn from that. Any other members wishing to speak? Tim.
Yes, just on those sides, just so I'm absolutely clear. Those three that are on the, was it 35 to 38, is it the residents that are going to be living there that have got to pay for it? Or is all of the residents paying into a management fund to look after it? And I would just like to know what the strength of the covenant is on those houses. And my final question, on the point above, he talks about management and maintenance plan for the lifetime of the development. Could you just confirm whether that is really the lifetime of the development, or is it just a set number of years?
There would be a management company which the residents would pay into, and then they would overtake some of the maintenance. Obviously, some of it would be done by us
Once adopted.
once adopted.
If it was, I don't
Thank you, Mr. Michael.
Mayor, just to clarify, I think that the drainage features that are in the gardens, the people who will buy those properties, there will be information available on the deeds of those properties. They will be fully aware that they have certain drainage infrastructure running through their gardens. They would not be directly responsible to do the works in the event that that was necessary. It would be either the management company or the council, depending on which bit that the council has adopted. But that person would not be personally liable for that particular bit of the drainage kit, I understand. It will be either the management company or the adopted or the council.
And just the second part, what is lifetime?
My understanding is that in perpetuity at the time the development itself is on the site. So if the development were to be removed, then that is the point that it would stop being in existence.
Thank you.
Any other members wishing to speak on that? Okay, well, as I said, we will take these, although we had the presentation based on the two, we'll take them separately. So the first application for condition for consideration is 152725, and the recommendation is clearly stated on page 83 that the committee authorise the approval of planning condition 25 in accordance with the relevant submissions. Could members please indicate whether they support that? That's unanimous, thank you members. And the second part of that is that on the actual recommendation is on page 96. This relates to application 152659. And the recommendation, again, I'll just repeat, that the committee authorise the approval of the plan condition 22, 23, 24 in accordance with the relevant submissions. 26 has already been discharged, it's not part of this. So, members willing to indicate again, please, on that? Again, that is unanimous. So those are now fully discharged. I think this should be proceeding. That ends the formal parts of the planning committee.